If you're reading in the Greek, as I sometimes like to do, the fifth word in Homer's The Odyssey is polytropos. This is our very first description of Odysseus, our very first introduction to our hero. Now, if you dissect the word, poly means many, and tropos means turns, many turns. But what does it say? What does it tell us about Odysseus? There's no consensus. Across 4 centuries and more than 60 English translations, scholars, classicists, and poets have never agreed on the best English rendering of that single Greek word. Alexander Pope's 1726 translation reads, quote, "For wisdom's various arts renowned." William Cowper's 1791 version says, quote, "For shrewdness famed and genius versatile." Alan Mandelbaum's reads, "Of many wiles." William Morris, shifty. William Cullen Bryant's sagacious. And most recently, Emily Wilson's landmark 2018 translation reads, quote, "Tell me about a complicated man, Muse. Tell me how he wandered and was lost when he had wrecked the holy town of Troy, and where he went and who he met, the pain he suffered on the sea, and how he worked to save his life and bring his men back home. He failed, and for their own mistakes, they died. They ate the sun god's cattle, and the god kept them from home. Now, goddess, child of Zeus, tell the old story for our modern times. Find the beginning." End quote. Emily Wilson's version of the Odyssey, this is the first published English translation completed by a woman, the latest in a 3 millennia-long examination and celebration of Homer's work, is today's Velshi Band Book Club feature. The Odyssey begins in the middle. The Trojan War, caused by the abduction of Helen of Troy, has ended after a decade of bloody fighting. Odysseus is trapped on a wondrous island by the goddess Calypso. Although she offers him a way to cheat death, he desperately wants to return home to Ithaca and to his family and to reclaim who he is. In Ithaca, Odysseus' wife, Penelope, is surrounded by aggressive suitors, waiting for the day she's finally going to give up on Odysseus and choose one of them. Penelope cannot stave off these suitors forever. Their son, Telemachus, is stuck between adulthood and childhood. He's emotionally and physically vulnerable, without the fortitude to defend his household or his mother. Ultimately, the Odyssey examines memory and truth, masculinity, the complexities of loyalty and temptation, justice, and the realities of home, belonging, and identity. As Emily Wilson notes in the extensive introduction she includes with her translation, the Odyssey is a peculiar mixture of the strange and the familiar. Here, magic and mundane and human and divine intertwine. Readers like me, picking the epic up to reacquaint ourselves after a decade out of the classroom, I've been out of the classroom for more than a decade, or perhaps to better understand Christopher Nolan's latest movie, will surely enjoy Wilson's translation of the Odyssey. Using iambic pentameter that feels conversational, natural, and not forced or stilted, Wilson's translation is remarkably fast-paced, restrained, and even funny. It feels fresh, it's immersive, it's contemporary. Quote, "My Homer does not speak your grandparents' English, since that language is no closer to the wine-dark sea than your own. I've tried to keep to a register that is recognizably speakable and readable while skirting between Charybdis of artifice and the Scylla of slang." End quote. This is an odyssey for the modern age and the modern reader that, crucially, does not sacrifice any of the story's complexity or nuance. Translation is exacting, and Wilson is exacting. Indeed, by doing away with some of the 19th century language that many readers might expect from an English translation of the Odyssey, Wilson allows the story to take center stage. Emily Wilson, so evidently aware of the power of the Odyssey from the very sentence she pens, asks something of her readers. Quote, "Reading the Odyssey with fresh, curious, and critical eyes may help us not only rethink our assumptions about people in the past, but also break down some of our modern distinctions and assumptions. Odysseus is a migrant, but he's also a political and military leader, a strategist, a poet, a loving husband and father, an adulterer, a mass murderer, and a war hero. Immersing ourselves in his story and considering how these categories can exist in the same imaginative space may help us reconsider our infinitely complex contemporary world." End quote. Polytropos, indeed. I am thrilled to be joined by the classicist Emily Wilson, the only woman to publish a translated version of Homer's The Odyssey in English. She's also the author of the forthcoming work, Crossing the Wine Dark Sea, Journeys Through Ancient Literature, which is a truly entertaining essay collection about Greek and Roman literature. Emily, thank you so much for being with us, and a warm welcome to you.
Thank you so much for your zinnia, or your hospitality in having me here. It's lovely to meet you.
What a pleasure. Well, tell me about the idea of that I just quoted, the idea of the value of reading an ancient text through a modern lens.
You know, I think part of what I'm trying to say in that discussion is that I think we need to read this ancient text through an ancient lens, and that we need to allow antiquity to challenge modernity rather than just the other way around. There needs to be this dialogue between what's strange and what's familiar in an ancient text like the Odyssey, which itself is a poem concerned with the strange and the familiar and the ways those categories can get confused.
Let's talk a little about Telemachus. Odysseus and Penelope's son. He's with Penelope, not with Odysseus. He's caught between boyhood and manhood. Talk to me about how masculinity and coming of age as a young man is examined in the Odyssey through Telemachus.
Yes, so the father and son in the Odyssey go on these parallel journeys, and the poem is surprising in many different ways. If you haven't read it recently or haven't read it at all, you may be surprised to realize the first four books are not about Odysseus at all. They're about Telemachus going on his own journey to meet his father's old war buddies and to begin this journey towards adult masculinity. He's prompted into that journey by Athena. And the poem traces what does it mean for Telemachus to grow up, and can he actually definitively grow up? If his father is coming back to be the man of the household, does Telemachus actually have to stay frozen in this strange state of being never quite a man?
One of the most famous refrains or repeated lines from the Odyssey is rosy-fingered dawn. Now, your translation very intentionally plays with different ways to approach that. For instance, quote, when early dawn revealed her rose-red hands, or in another place you say, the early dawn was born, her fingers bloomed. Talk to me about that.
I love the repetitions in the Odyssey. There are so many beautiful formulaic pieces of language, the wine dark sea, horse Lord Nestor. And I play around with the ways that a modern reader is likely to have different expectations about repetition from an ancient reader or ancient listener. Of course, this poem was primarily experienced orally, like the audiobook, but actually by live performers in antiquity. The poem is about time, and so the repetitions of dawn are constant reminders of the ways that time is cyclical and also time moves forward. Odysseus is moving backwards in time in returning to Ithaca, to his past self, his past home. Dawns keep on happening, keep on coming, and they both repeat, and they also move the story forward.
You talk about an audiobook. I can't imagine reading such a long book as an audiobook, except your book is such an easy read. You have done something in making it contemporary while staying faithful to the original, which will invite a lot of new readers to the Odyssey and did, in fact, result in this film. What do you worry that new readers will misunderstand about the Odyssey?
You know, I actually wanted to say just 1 second I actually don't think vividness and rapidity are the same as modern. I mean, I want to convey the rapidness and the emotional, psychological depth of the Odyssey, but that's not the same as making it modern. Ancient readers understood that Homer is very fast, very vivid, very exciting and thrilling and good to think with. I think one big thing that I find students very often are puzzled by in the Odyssey is, why is there this sexual double standard? Why is it fine if Odysseus spends 8 years having sex with two different goddesses and Penelope can't have sex with any of her suitors? That would be bad. There's this idea that there isn't actually a completely gender neutral idea of adultery in the ancient Greek world. Instead, there's an idea of moicheia, and it's bad for a man to go off with another man's wife. That isn't what would happen if Odysseus is having sex with a goddess outside his own home. That's fine. That's not moicheia. So that kind of social and evaluative distinction can be hard to get your head around when you start reading the poem.
Your reaction to the new adaptation of Odyssey has caused such a stir that it reportedly crashed the London Review of Books website.
You know, I was told that's fake news, but who knows? I don't know.
The author Joyce Carol Oates was saying, do you think this level of public interest says something more about the enduring appeal of Homer, or is it about the movie-making industry, or is it about you as the translator, or something else? What do you make of this whole thing?
I mean, I'm actually honestly very baffled by it because, I've written reviews before. Other people have written reviews before. There are some reviews that liked this film and some that didn't. I don't really know why this somehow blew up the way it did. I think it's quite weird. And in some ways, I find it a little bit disturbing because I would like to live in a world where people can make nuanced analyses and criticize a work of art while also having dialogue and other people can feel a different way about the film. I don't want to live in a world where we just have to say yay or no, or if you don't like certain things about a work of art, that means you're a hater. I would like us to be able to have more conversation than that and dig into the nuances of what works and what doesn't work.
It's why the Welsh Band Book Club exists. We definitely read that. I want to be clear because I agree. When I've been incorrectly using the term modern to describe your interpretation, what I really mean is modern language, easy to understand contemporary language, not that you've made it something different than Homer. It's just that it's easy for us to understand.
Yeah, I totally appreciate that. Yes. I mean, I think in some ways I'm quite a traditionalist on a formal level because I'm using traditional meter. So, but you're absolutely right that I'm trying to echo the syntactical clarity of the original, which I hope does make it easy to read and fun to read.